الربيع حين شنيعك والأسد سبحان الربيع العلم سبحان الربيع العلم.
Senator Kennedy has been shot. Is that possible? Is that possible?
MV Salem Exabris was a passenger ship that sank in the Al-Bahr Ahmar. It is notable due to the heavy loss of life which occurred when she sank shortly after striking a reef at around 11:13 p.m. on December 14, 1991. Salem Exabris was a roll-on, roll-off passenger ferry which operated for 25 years with many different owners, names, and regular routes at that time. The ship was originally named Fred Scamaroni, a World War II French resistance member who was captured and tortured, killing himself in his cell without revealing his mission. Construction began in June 1963. In November 1964, she was launched and towed to Pointe-de-Buc for completion, being finally delivered in June 1965 to the Compagnie Générale Transatlantique, Marseille, France. A fire in her engine room delayed her maiden voyage on June 26, 1966. In June 1966, she began operating on her first route between Marseille and Ajaccio. In January 1967, she collided with the Ajaccio quay, and in April 1970, a fire broke out on the way to Bastia. While operating the Dunkirk-Ramsgate route in 1980, she ran aground and on another occasion caused a traffic jam due to slow truck loading. In 1988, she was sold to the Salmon Tower Shipping Company as SOS Mr. and renamed Salem Exabris. Her scheduled route was between El Suez and Jeddah. On its final voyage, Salem Exabris sailed her usual 450-mile, 720-kilometer journey from Jeddah, Al-Mamlakatu, Al-Arabiatu, Soweto to Safaja Misr, which took around 36 hours. They intended to unload 350 passengers before continuing sailing north to Al-Suez. This route had been the ship's standard schedule since 1988. The night of the sinking was stormy. The majority of the passengers were Masriyun. Most were poorly paid laborers traveling home by boat for the holidays. Around 150 were returning from pilgrimage to Makkah. Dives to the shipwreck confirmed the holiday mood of the ship, with luggage packed with gifts for family members. Pilgrims returning from Makkah were dressed in fine clothes to celebrate. The ship ran aground on a coral reef between 6 to 10 miles offshore after deviating from its planned route. The reef ripped a hole in the forward starboard bow and knocked open the ship's bow door, allowing seawater into the car deck. Ro-ro ferries are extremely vulnerable once the car deck is breached. The official record in Lloyd's Marine Casualties states, while approaching Safaja at midnight in rough weather, the master took a shortcut, which was not authorized for night passage. The ferry struck a reef and sank within 20 minutes. Initial reports claimed the ship had drifted off course in the high winds. This was supported by the ship's second officer, Halidu Mamdou Ahmed, whose job it was to chart the course into the port, claiming no changes had been made. Al-Qahriya's state-owned radio quoted Salem Tower officials as saying the ship had veered off course in bad weather and that attempts had been made, apparently unsuccessfully, to warn it. Masrian investigators said they had received no reports that the Salem Exabris deviated from its schedule. However, an alternative belief is that the ship was deliberately taken on a different route by the captain in an attempt at a shortcut to reduce the travel time by several hours. This was reported by the Al-Iramu newspaper. Al-Captainu Hassan Morru had commanded the ship since 1988 and was familiar with the waters and was reportedly known for taking a shortcut between the Hinman Reef and the coastline from the south instead of around the Panorama Reef from the north. The ship's departure had been delayed due to mechanical faults in Al-Mamlakatu Al-Arabiyatu Soweto by 2 days. Several crew members said the captain was in a hurry, and the ship's nurse, Hanan Salah, said the crew was hurrying in hope of getting a full overnight stop to rest at Safaja before continuing to Al-Suesu. This is the most widely reported story in secondary sources. The ship was due to make port at 11:30 p.m. Al-Captainu Hassanu Halili Morru was resting in his cabin with the first officer on the bridge. At around 11:13 p.m., a crash rocked the ship as it ran aground and began shaking. Very soon after, it began listing to one side and the lights went out. The captain sounded the distress signal. The ship was underwater in close to 11 minutes, trapping hundreds below the deck, and sank entirely within 20 minutes. The speed of the sinking created panic on deck. Only one of the lifeboats was launched. Nurse Salah said there was no time to help people into lifeboats. Other survivors complained they had difficulty manning the lifeboats, and that some crew members had pushed them aside to take the boats themselves. Some crew members descended into the ship to knock on cabin doors and rouse passengers. Shabano Abu Sariya, who left his cabin because he heard crew members shouting, said, "It just sank all at once, and I barely had time to get out." The extreme weather made survival in the water more difficult. Rescue attempts on the night were not attempted due to the storm. One survivor found a life raft in the stormy water after 4 hours clinging to a wooden oar. It was filled with water and 3 bodies. Along with another man, she rescued 15 people onto the raft, only for it to capsize in the high waves at 7 o'clock a.m. Another man described fellow survivors clinging to the same wooden board, being swept away by the waves. Ismail Abdel Hassani, an amateur long-distance swimmer who worked as an agricultural engineer, stood on the ship's deck as it sank. He followed the lights of the port and swam to shore, surviving 18 hours in the water. He attempted to lead 2 other men to safety who held onto his clothes, but each died of exhaustion on the way. Due to bad weather, rescuers could not begin work until dawn on December 15th, with 10-foot seas and high winds, making the rescue operation challenging. Initial efforts were undertaken by 4 Misriun naval ships, 3 Air Force C-130 transport planes, and 4 helicopters, with support from U.S. and Australian Navy helicopters. Life rafts and life jackets were dropped to survivors, and tourist boats also helped to rescue people from the sea. 150 people were rescued on December 15th of an eventual 180 survivors, with the rescue attempt again halted overnight by weather and darkness. Search and recovery continued throughout December 16th. Egyptian authorities initially intended to raise the ship. It was found to be lying on its starboard side on the seabed. The recovery was halted after 3 days as it was too dangerous to continue any deeper into the lower levels of the ship. On December 17th, the Masrian Navy began recovery operations, supported by 23 local diving professionals and hobbyists from Al Khardaha and Safaja. 40 to 50 bodies were recovered on the first day. Victims recovered were mostly from the uppermost port side of the ship. The ferry's captain, Hassanu Khalili Moru, and 2 other crew members were found in the bridge area, contradicting rumors he had left in a lifeboat. Many of the deceased had been trapped within the ship as it sank. Although Al-Islamiyati tradition prefers to avoid burial at sea where possible, it is permissible when there is no other option, and entryways into the ship were welded shut to prevent the bodies from being disturbed in an attempt to protect the site as a tomb. The official death toll was 470, though some evidence suggests that the ship was overcrowded and the true death toll may have been much greater, likely more than 1,600, surpassing the RMS Titanic's 1,517.